having a good relationship with food doesn't mean that it has to be perfect, that we have to eat clean 100% of the time or have to eat vegetables, salad all the time. And this is what it means we are eating healthy or we are nourishing ourselves. That's completely not it. And I think we have heard so many misconceptions and wrong information, wrong advice on social media and all over the internet that trying to tell us what is actually to eat good, what is actually to eat healthy, what is actually nourishing ourselves through food, that I don't blame anyone who has completely got confused over it and has completely formed a certain relationship with food that maybe does not even benefit them. So in this video, I want to talk about what are the characteristics of having a good relationship with food and nourishing yourself mean to me. And I think that's what it should mean for everyone. And I'm not going to use the term good or bad at all, because I don't think we should use good and bad term for food. Food doesn't have a moral value. That's how we should think of. Nothing is good, nothing is bad, nothing is toxic, nothing is unhealthy, nothing is going to ruin our health. So we have to completely detach from this way of thinking, and we have to kind of achieve a freedom. And I think this is what everyone would like to achieve at some point: eating, getting into fitness, becoming fit, achieving a healthy way of living, nourishing themselves, to detach themselves from the toxic way of thinking, from the good and bad, and kind of achieve a freedom through food and enjoyment and nourishment, and implementing food into our life through this way of thinking that we are nourishing ourselves. Food is fuel and pleasure as well, and enjoyment is not good and bad and is not ruining our life or our progress or anything like that. Having a good relationship with food is not about clean eating. I don't even like this way, this verse saying clean eating. It's kind of stupid to say that the food is clean or something, or what you put in on a plate is clean. What we can talk about definitely is whole foods, or foods that have more nourishment, whole foods. And I wish everyone to eat more whole foods. And of course, we can also talk about foods that are more for our soul, for enjoyment, for us to enjoy a little bit life as well, you know? So I think the first characteristics of achieving a good relationship with your food, with your nourishment, is the unconditional permission of eating. So what I said, you have to detach your mind from this good and bad. Something is good, and then you make a list, which are the good things like vegetables, tomato, peppers, bad peppers, celery, potatoes, sweet potatoes. Forget, we are not writing a list of which is good and bad. Bad, chocolate, chips, right? Coca-Cola. No, you have to detach yourself from this. Each of the foods have a place in our diet. And these kind of foods shouldn't be categorized as food good and bad, or giving us reward, or taking away. So we have to detach and allow ourselves the unconditional permission to eat. So like, not to restrict. It starts with the restrictions as well. Of course, when it's about weight loss, we might want to apply certain restrictions, but it can also come in the form of a calorie deficit. That is also a certain restriction that can be applied by either by adding more movement to your day or reducing the calories in your diet. So you shouldn't be punishing yourself for eating certain things or compensating with exercise because you have eaten something things. So allow yourself to eat food unconditionally. The second one is tuning into body cues, sort of intuitive eating. Now, this is kind of, sometimes people overcomplicate this as well, just like everything else. Intuitive eating is allowing your body to tell you what it needs and listening to the cues and listening to it. I can tell you a couple of examples. For example, I remember after my pregnancy, when I lost quite a lot of blood. So that means my iron was also going lower than it should be. I might have some iron deficiency. And so after the first couple of weeks, but especially after the first few days after the birth, I was literally, my body, I was feel like I need spinach or like this kind of dark leafy greens. I could really feel it in my body that I crave these, I want to eat these foods. Why? This could be also something that my body was telling me. I lost a lot of blood, iron deficiency. So these kind of foods, dark leafy greens, spinach, these can help you produce more blood, and these can have more iron as well in them. So this was also kind of a cue that body was telling me. Other cue what I feel all the time when I do a very heavy training with very heavy weights, very heavy exercise, lifting weights after, I tend to, and this is every time, I tend to crave protein. I feel like my body is telling me I need something like a lot of protein, not like protein powder or something. I want meat. I want beef, or I want chicken with rice. I want a tuna with rice or salmon, something like really protein dense. This is what I crave. And I really feel it in my body that I want to eat these things after a heavy lifting session. So these are also cues from your body that you can understand what your body is telling you. You can eat intuitively. Or another example for intuitive eating, sometimes it is not necessarily what your body needs, but you can also plan it ahead. Like, for example, you have just had breakfast and you know you guys are going to go out, or you're going to go out for a couple of hours, and you know you will not be able to eat then because you will be busy going all around. For example, maybe you would have eaten lunch at 1 o'clock, so instead it's already 11 o'clock, so you're going to have your lunch now because you know at 1 o'clock you're going to be around in the city or somewhere doing your errands, and you won't be able to eat then, and you don't want to pick up some junk food or whatever over there. So you rather eat in advance some heavier meal as your lunch, earlier lunch, than getting stuck in the center or somewhere in the city and not being able to eat nutrient-dense food or what your body needs. So that is also kind of an intuitive eating, knowing what your body will need then, because you will be out doing errands, you won't be able to eat. So you eat ahead a couple hours earlier than what you planned, because you know this will help you nourish you for the time when you are out. Of course, another intuitive eating as well is eating when you are hungry. So you're not snacking all the time out of boredom, but like literally feeling what your body is telling you. Am I hungry? Do I really need this chocolate bar right now or this bag of chips? Actually, I don't. I'm not even hungry, so I'm just going to leave it right there. And then just reaching out for food when you're actually hungry as well, and not just anytime. The third one I want to talk about is the freedom of guilt and anxiety. So food should not trigger shame or anxiety or certain fear just because, for example, you had a pizza with friends out, or you had a slice of cake on a birthday party, and now you have to be ashamed or guilty about it, that you are ruining your progress. So you have to also ditch the shame, the fear, and any kind of feeling, this kind of not helpful feeling and thoughts around food that are absolutely not helpful for you. And obviously, we want to be able to eat whatever we want, whenever we want. Of course, in mind that we also nourish ourselves and we are eating nourishing food most of the time. But whenever we eat a slice of cake, or we have to go McDonald's now because there's nothing else there and we are on a trip, or we are invited to birthday party, or we are invited for Christmas and we have to indulge, and we like to indulge and we want to enjoy the celebration with the family and eating together, you shouldn't associate this with guilt or shame or any kind of fear the day after or afterwards. But we have to detach this. We have to forget about all these negative feelings associated with food, the guilt, the shame, the anxiety, and we want to achieve freedom around food without these negative feelings. Your self-worth is completely separate from what you ate that day. Also, think about it that what you ate that day is just one episode of eating in your entire life or in your entire week, or even you have to detach from this kind of negative thoughts. Just enjoy the company of your family, your friends, and just move on. This is just one episode of eating out of your day, or your week, or even your year. The fourth one I want to talk about is flexibility over rigidity. I think this is my favorite because I am absolutely not a fan of restrictions. I hate restrictions, and I think most of the people are also not good around restrictions, because that's when all the issues coming up all the time. When you are restricting, you just want those things that you are restricting. So if you say you're not allowing yourself sugar, all you will want is sugar. I want to be able to enjoy a slice of cake whenever I want. I want to be able to enjoy cookies every day if I want to. Because believe me, I nearly eat every day something sweet. And especially when my period comes around, don't even get me started, the cravings I get. And what I just understood from my own body is better to let those cravings happen sometimes, because if you're just trying to, especially around the period, if you're just trying to replace the craving with some alternatives, you might still end up eating that specific thing that you were craving in the end, after all the alternatives you have eaten as well. So it would have been just better at the first place and less calories even if you just take that craving, eat it, and finish with it. This alternative, 4 different type of alternative, hoping that is gonna make your craving stop. And in the end, after all the 4 alternatives that you have eaten, you eat the specific cookie or guilt pleasure or whatever you call it, your sweet treat that you thought you can replace with certain alternatives. And then you have ended up eating so much more calories than if you would have just taken that first thing in the first place. It's not just about cravings, it's all about that I'm all for flexibility over rigidity and restrictions, because I do believe if you restrict, you will just want that specific thing. And we can also have certain cravings sometimes that we might just let them take over us and just give it in and just give in and then just take it and eat it, whatever. Because I believe that you can only be happy and healthy if you allow flexibility. Let's just put it simply that way. If you're constantly rigid and you constantly restrict, you're not going to be happy. And then it will stick in your mind and it will eat you up alive. It will give you anxiety and fear. And that's what all the mental health problems will start to come and take over about the food and about the relationship of your food. So allow flexibility. My great tip is the 80 to 20%. So 80% of the time I'm nourishing myself with whole foods. Whole foods means that I almost make everything from scratch all the time. So I love whole foods anyway, like simplicity as well in my meals, most of the time, at least 80% of the time. And around the 20% of the time, you can allow yourself to indulge, eat a little bit sweet, eat what's your favorite treat is, like either maybe is a wine or a Prosecco and chocolate, or you like chips and ice cream, just get those 2 things and eat those during the week. Yeah, that's what I think. So be flexible, restrict your calories, but don't restrict what you eat all the time. Of course, in certain days you might need to, but not all the time. Sometimes we have to allow ourselves also flexibility. And it's better, the more flexibility you allow yourselves, the longer you can maintain the specific diet that you are doing. Because if you are very rigid, you won't be able to survive with that on the long term. So you have to implement flexibility. Have your favorite foods as well have a place in your diet. I guarantee that. Not all the time. So I'm not saying to eat ice cream all the time, 5 times a day or whatever, but 20% of the time, think of that 20%, you can allow yourself, which would mean maybe every day for 1 meal, you can have something, you can indulge something. But on the other hand as well, the more nutritious you start to eat, the more whole foods you will start to implement in your diet, the less like you will crave these things actually. Because I don't want to eat chocolate all the time. I don't even want to eat chocolate anymore every day. I used to eat every day chocolate. I was crazy about chocolate. I think it came with something that it was so hard for me to get when I was a child, and they were restricting me. They were not buying what I wanted. So later when I grew up and I was making my own money, I could just buy chocolate for myself all the time whenever I wanted. And maybe at some point I ate so much of it that now I don't even want it anymore. I have a fatigue of the same things that I see all the time in the supermarket. And I'm like, yeah, I know this already. I don't want it anymore. So I allowed myself in the past enough of these things that I know now. I don't really need it anymore. And of course, I have maybe other things that I like. I rather enjoy more a little wine, but that's just me. So all I'm saying is the more nutritious you will start to eat over time, the less like you will crave these things anymore. The 5th thing I want to mention is to eat both for nourishment and pleasure. I think I a little bit touched of this topic already, so around 80 and 20% of the time. So don't just eat also for nourishment. We have to allow this kind of flexibility for ourselves to nourish our body and also have these things that we like and enjoy, and allow these things in our diets. Or if we love to go out to restaurant and eat Spanish food, or I don't know, eat fried chicken or what's your favorite, allow this a little bit in your diet and then, achieve your results through flexibility. Of course, not all the time. Should be eating fried chicken all the time, KFC, whatever, but once in a while, So you also have to achieve that kind of balance. And when you have that balance, then you have the food freedom. The 6th one I want to talk about, in order to achieve a healthy and balanced relationship with our food, we also need to achieve that the food doesn't dominate our thoughts anymore. So the food shouldn't dominate our thoughts. We shouldn't be obsessing about what we have eaten and if this is going to ruin our progress now just because we went to eat a slice of cake or we went to a restaurant or we ordered pizza last night. So we have to stop the obsession around food and we have to achieve the freedom through that. And it's not just like that now you're going to have a company party and you want to skip it because you are not sure what you can eat there, or you are afraid that you might overeat, or you drink too much alcohol and that's going to ruin your progress. So you see where I'm getting, right? All these things we want to achieve in order to have a healthy relationship with our food. So not to obsess, allow ourselves permission to eat, allow flexibility in our food, don't be too rigid, don't restrict too much, detach from guilt, anxiety, obsession, and then eat for nourishment and for pleasure both. So eat like 80 and 20%, 80% of the time, whole foods, nutrient-dense foods that are nourishing your body. And in the 20% of the time, allow yourself some pleasure that you enjoy. And over time, actually, you will see if you continue this 80-20, over time, you will see that the 20%, it may be less and less. Because over the time, the more and more we are nourishing ourselves with whole foods and with foods that are really nourishing our body with protein, carbs, fats, the less likely we will reach out for the pleasure foods, But even if you do, in a 20% of the time, that's perfectly fine. So you try to achieve a balance in order to achieve a healthy relationship with our food. And I think this should be something that everybody would like to have in their life and everybody would like to achieve. Because this is a base of longevity and health and a good mental health. So the takeaway in this, a healthy relationship with food brings peace to the table. It balances physical health and emotional well-being, allowing food to be source of life and enjoyment rather than a source of stress. So if you like this video, I hope you will think about this and try to implement these tips. And I want to see you in my next video. Cheers.